Hey, welcome to my video on soldering, and today I want to go through the proper repair and soldering procedure of automotive wiring. And I have one here that's already complete for you to take a look at. Made a nice little circle, and we got some solder that flowed all the way through. Okay, and I want to go ahead and do that for you. Let's go ahead and take a look at the procedure. And here I have some tools that are laid out that I wanted to show you. A couple different types of wire strippers that we commonly use in automotive industry. This is probably the most common. This one has a gauge built in on it. Makes it really nice when you're up under a dashboard or really tight to, reach place. This one's kind of one of my favorites. Here we have an automotive automatic stripper. This one also has a gauge on there. So this one's good if you're doing a lot of wiring, 20, 30 soldering joints in a short period of time. Problem with this one is it's really hard to fit in those hard to reach places such as up under dashboards or in door jambs, but it works great. Here I just have a regular pair of wire cutters, which you're going to need. And lastly, I got this pair of wire strippers, which came in your project kits. And I think I went over this with you guys already. However, these are nice, very low cost. Problem is, though, is that until you really develop a feel for how much wire sheathing to strip off, this one can kind of cut it right in half. So be careful. It does have a little adjustment screw right here. And as you loosen it and slide it up, you control the amount of distance these jaws open. Okay, that said, I'm going to go ahead and just take this piece of wire and we're going to solder it into a circle. And so what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to strip one end with these wire strippers that I showed you here a little earlier. And the wire gauge that we are working with is it's a 16 gauge. And how much sheathing are we supposed to take off? I always use the rule of thumb, and I'll strip away the amount of sheathing that's the length of my thumbnail. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to select the correct size gauge, which is a 16, which you saw right there, and just pull it away. Okay, and you're left with that bare copper wire. Now that's that model. Let's go ahead and try this automatic stripper and see if it does any better. Okay, and again, we're going to use a 16 gauge. I think you can see that. All right, close it up there. And how you work this one is just lay the wire right in, about that thumbnail's length. Okay, and I'm going to close it up and watch what happens. It automatically does it for you, which is kind of nice. Okay. Again, if you're doing a lot of stripping, I'm just sort of heating up my soldering iron here as we talk. So if you're doing a lot of stripping, that the automatic stripper is really going to do a good job for you. Okay, I'll move those out of the way. Our next step is going to be, something that I like to do when I'm soldering wire, and I'll just take the copper here and I'll flare it out, okay, on both sides. And I'm going to just interlock them. And then watch what I do. I'm just going to twist those ends over each other, repeating that same process on the other side. Okay. And what that did is it already made a pretty good connection, even without the solder. So adding solder to it, it's only going to make it even stronger. So let's go ahead and go through that. Here I got my soldering iron. It's already warmed up. Two types of soldering guns you could use, either a soldering iron or a triggered soldering gun, which I have right over here. Okay. Either way, what's the benefit? Well, this one, if you're up under a dashboard or in a door jamb, they're kind of nice if you're only soldering, 1, 2, 3 wires. This one, if you're doing a lot of them, like you have a lot of open circuits in a door jamb for power windows, power mirrors, I think this one's going to be a little bit better. Okay, because it's always hot, whereas the triggered soldering gun is only hot when you pull the trigger. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure that you've got a good shot there, is I'm going to hold my soldering iron underneath the wire. I'm going to try and get you a little bit more of a close-up there. Okay. And I'm holding that soldering iron under the copper wire, just a way to kind of get that copper hot. And when you do that, it seems to take solder a lot better. So we're just kind of waiting a few here, and once we get that done, I'm going to go ahead and take some of my solder, and I'm just going to hit the tip of the soldering iron. I like to keep it on an angle, my soldering iron. And I'm getting some of that solder dripped down onto the copper wire. And I'm holding it there and get a little more solder. Of course, it would seem that the tip of my soldering iron is getting kind of, due for a cleaning. So, if you notice, I put the tip of the soldering iron underneath my copper wire. And look what happened. It's drawing the solder all the way through. I don't need any more there. We don't want to overdo it. I'm going to flip this over, see how it looks. That looks pretty good to me. What we want to make sure of is that we're getting solder to go all the way through our copper wire strands. Remember, initially when we put them together, we kind of intertwined them with our finger, like I'm doing with my fingers, and you want to make sure that you're getting solder that's dripping all the way through them copper strands. So if you look on this side, it looks good. Look on this side, it looks good also. So I would say that right there is a really good solder joint. And you want to make sure that it's nice and smooth. I'm running my fingers across it. There's no sharp barbs, because if there were any sharp points on this wire, what might happen is if there's a wire running next to it, they could rub, and now you might create yourself an open circuit or a short circuit, and well, that's a problem. So I hope this helps you out. This is soldering.